Hello and welcome to episode number 30 of the Blue Water Running Podcast. I'm your host, Maren, and this podcast features and celebrates the achievements of high school and collegiate cross-country and track and field athletes from the Blue Water area of Michigan. On November 23rd, the Division II NCAA cross-country national meet was held in Sacramento, California. Saginaw Valley State University's men's cross-country team earned an at-large bid to compete and finish 17th, one of SVSU's highest finishes at this event. Noah Verlinde, a senior, finished the race as the sixth man for the Cardinals in his 10K personal best of 32:41. A 2020 graduate of Armada High School and a former Blue Water Area Conference athlete, he won two of the three BWAC cross-country jamborees his senior year, qualified for the Division II MHSAA state finals all 4 years of his high school career, and narrowly missed All-State as a 12th grader, finishing 32nd. Noah has 5K PRs of 16:22 for high school and 14:31 collegiately, and an 8K PR of 25:08. He joins us on this episode to talk about his first trip to nationals, his experiences during his collegiate training and racing, and other insights about the sport, its challenges, and how to keep a great perspective on balancing life as a runner. Welcome to episode 30 of the Blue Water Running Podcast, Noah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So let's start off today with your recap of the NCAA D2 national meet. I'm correct in saying this was your first national experience. Is that true?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So just talk to us about your experience there. Some of the things you could mention. What was it like for athletes? Were there any specific things that you got to do where you kind of felt like a VIP before or after? You can talk to us about the course conditions. I know that it was very muddy, so that should be an interesting perspective to hear too.
For sure. What an opportunity to be able to fly across the country and be able to toe the line against the nation's best for Division II cross country. That it doesn't get very much better than that, and that's what you always strive to accomplish throughout your career at least once. I think as a young person or young athlete, I had probably envisioned that I'd be on that line maybe a little bit earlier in my career, but this one was super meaningful to kind of put a nice ribbon on what's coming to a close in my collegiate career. But the meet itself was amazing. Yeah, you mentioned that the weather was quite a bit maybe less than ideal, but for us as a team, we were really excited because being a Midwest team, we're used to running in that rain and colder temperature and muddy conditions. We were honestly super excited to see that because it honestly, I think maybe while it might have affected some teams mentally where it's like, oh man, like this is going to shake up some things, it made us feel very at home and very comfortable with the environment. So it made it very fun too, just, pure cross country weather. And performance wise, it was, again, just such a special way to end the season with, 7 of my closest friends that I've, just come to get really with, not just this season, but throughout my career. And this season has certainly had its ups and downs, as any team will have. There's a lot of adversity that comes with the season, and nothing ever goes exactly to plan. But we came in ranked 26, and we were able to best that place by 9 spots and finish 17th, which is really huge for us, and it really gives us a great launching pad for heading into this indoor and outdoor season, and then for the future of this cross country program in general. So, very great experience, and I'm super grateful to have that opportunity.
Yeah, it was really fun to watch. I watched some of the live streaming and then some of the replay on YouTube. And it was also really awesome to see a Michigan runner win the women's race. So that was cool? Yeah, that was really exciting to see. Grand Valley took the individual title. And then I also thought it was interesting, like you said, being from the Midwest, how some of those really warm state teams reacted to, I think they thought California would be warm and dry, and it didn't end up being exactly that way.
So did we.
Right. So if you're excited to travel to California because you would get that California weather, sadly, no. So, all right, well, let's talk about your training. So you put this ribbon, like you said, on your senior last meet of your senior season. You ran a PR too, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. So, what does it look like for you? I know you're wrapping it up now, but in a typical week in your training, as you're going through the cross country season, what kind of workouts do you consistently focus on? What is your, average mileage? I know it varies depending on what you're training for, how
Sure.
long you spend training, racing, any auxiliary stuff you throw in, just to give maybe a high school athlete that's looking at attending a collegiate program a little perspective on what to expect.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've had the luxury, during my time at Saginaw Valley State to be able to really choose how much I wanted to commit to my sport. And, I figured given that you only get such a finite amount of time to really take advantage of this opportunity to see how good you can be, I really enjoy committing a lot of my time to it. I'm sure if you ask any of my family, we just had the Thanksgiving season, but, I was still spending the time getting some miles into. So, can be a little bit frustrating for the family, but back to your question, mileage wise, peak mileage times, I'm typically hitting about 90 to 95 miles a week. And, that's just the mileage that I'm hitting. So, outside of that, there is a lot of just stretching and rehab and just a lot of just general, like taking care of the body. I like to joke around, just being an older guy on the team, I'm getting old and need to take care of the body a little bit better. So, really take that seriously with trying to get in, an ice bath every once in a while and hitting up some Normatec boots or just spending, an hour or so after practice, really getting a good deep stretch and hitting a roller or two. And I like to also hit a good stretch session right before I go to bed as well. It's just kind of a routine that I found that helps me feel a little bit better the next day if I wouldn't have. So.
hmm are you a high mileage guy? I mean, is everyone on your team doing that kind of mileage? Is that pretty consistent for everybody, or do you have teammates who are varying, at lower mileages?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's individual for sure. Not everyone's body is completely different. I'm fortunate enough to where my body has been able to respond really well to high mileage and I just love being out there for as long as I can. It's just running is just so fun to be able to just really be a an outlet for me to be able to just spend my time and kind of in my head and go through some things that are really necessary. So, yeah, I mean, with not everyone is doing 90 to 95 miles a week. Everyone is a little bit individualistic. So we have people on the lower end with, doing maybe 50 to 60, and then all the way up to where I'm at 90, 95. I believe I'm one of two or three of us that are at that mileage mark. So, yeah, it just kind of worked out to where that's the mileage that I'm comfortable at and that I really enjoy and have been having success off of.
Yeah, it sounds like it works for you, and that's how you know your body best.
Absolutely.
So, piggybacking off of your training and wrapping up your cross country season, you mentioned that's giving you a lot of confidence going into indoor and outdoor track. So, what are your main goals as you look towards those seasons?
Oh yeah, it's coming up quick. We don't get much of a break here. We're actually
Nope.
having our home openers this weekend. So, yep, it's just one thing to the next, and that's the lifestyle here. But going into the indoor season, my main goal is focused on primarily the 5K. I'd love to hit a provisional standard for Division Two, which I believe is set at 1423. That'll just kind of get me on that list of, it certainly won't get me to the national meet, but it will get me some great opportunities later on in the season to go to some pretty competitive meets. So that's the main goal, I guess the most immediate one coming up. But looking long term, I just want to be able to, as we get into championship season, conference meets and everything like that, be able to podium. Last year, I was able to finish my season with a third place finish in the 5K. So I'd love to um, better that, if not, get to that same kind of level. And outside of performance-based goals, my biggest concern is with just really helping cultivate a good culture around our team and being able to lift up the younger guys, especially. It's been super exciting just kind of taking on more of a leadership role and helping, the younger freshmen, sophomore on the team be able to really kind of guide through the struggles of kind of this sport and be able to really better themselves and be the best versions of themselves they can be. So those are my two main goals is just helping the younger guys lift up and then hitting some benchmarks along the way.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you're a great role model and a leader. So, those are always really important things on any team.
I appreciate
Well,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Well, you're through, well, almost through, I should say, your final year as a collegiate athlete. So, talk to us about what some of your favorite experiences have been so far.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, kind of just piggybacking off of the trying to build other people up. The most memorable experiences have come from not any like particular performance necessarily, but being able to enjoy and seeing a lot of people grow so much and be able to achieve great things, and also just being able to spend really quality time with my teammates and be able to, I have friends that are on the team right now, and then friends that have left the team and are now in their professional careers. And I'm lucky enough to call them, one of my brothers now, an extended family member, which is super exciting. And it really just boils down to the small things, like going and grabbing breakfast after a Sunday long run, or it can be something a little bit more extravagant, like a couple years ago. The national meet for cross country was hosted in Tampa, Florida, and me and I think 10 or 12 other guys decided maybe a week before, we're like, why don't we just get in a car and drive down and watch? So that's exactly what we did is we took a trip. It was a 32-hour drive, and
Oh,
it was kind of gruesome in the moment, but I look back on just so many fond memories from that trip. And yeah, those are the memories I'm going to look back on the most, is just being able to spend such quality time with great people. And it's really made me into the person I am today.
well, that's a great segue into the next question, which is when you were looking at a college to attend, what factors helped you make up your mind to pick SVSU?
For sure. Yeah. So I am a business major, and SVSU at the time was actually building a brand new business building or facility, which was super duper exciting. And I got to meet some of the professors before I had come on campus, and I really just got a great like vibe from all of them. They were super accommodating and super like resourceful and being able to help me whether I was going to go to SVSU or somewhere else, to kind of show me what opportunities were available for the major that I wanted. So that was first and foremost. And then picking more team wise, it really boiled down to two things, which were the people on the team and then the coach. I kind of touched on the people already. I really meshed well with the guys on this team that have since graduated, and I was fortunate enough to be taken under the wing of some very great runners, but most importantly, great people that have really shaped how I want to live my life and have really allowed me to grow and thrive. So the people here were super important. And then maybe nobody more important than Coach Eric Phillips. It's really funny, actually. I was leaving a visit and pretty certain that I was going to actually commit to another school, until Coach Eric had happened to send me a message and just reached out and said, "Hi, I'm Coach Eric. Do you have time to talk?" And I happened to have a 3-hour drive home from that prior visit. So we talked for maybe an hour and a half of that. And he convinced me to get on campus. And then I was sold from there. He was such an accommodating coach. He really cared about not only my like physical performance, but also just my development as a person, which I really valued. And yeah, he's so much more than a coach to me. He's been like a role model and somebody that I'm going to look to as I, continue to transition into this next stage of my life. And looking back, I think I made the best decision of my life to come here.
Yeah, it sounds like it. You've had a lot of good experiences and had a lot of friendships and memories, so it sounds like it worked out.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about transitioning from high school running to collegiate running.
Mhm.
So, I'm guessing you redshirted a year if you're running your fifth year. Is that correct?
It was a bit weird. I did end up redshirting a couple, but I came in during the COVID time,
Oh,
so
okay.
there were some cross country I never redshirted. It just didn't happen to count because it didn't happen. So,
Gotcha.
but yeah, I did end up redshirting indoor and outdoor.
Okay. So, adjusting from high school running to collegiate running, what do you think was the most challenging thing for you personally, and something that you would advise high school runners to just be aware of and have it on their radar? Like, this is probably a normal thing that you'll have to get adjusted to, and it's not necessarily you.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's a whole nother. I mean, you're leaving home for the first time and on your own, really, for maybe the first time. I had been relatively independent as like a high schooler and done some things, so it was a little bit easier from that standpoint. But focusing primarily on like the running side of things, and I hope maybe that a lot of young runners might be able to relate to this, but we seem to be pretty eager to want to always do more and always, do the most that there possibly is to be. And that is something that I struggled with pretty late into my career, honestly, up until like a sophomore, junior year, where I was so fixated on, numbers and getting more and more volume in and believing that, hard work meant doing more and more until, I felt like it was adequate enough. But the reality was it never really was going to be because, I think we always think there's more that you can do. So the biggest thing that I can advocate for young runners is to be super patient with the process. I'm on my fifth year here now, and I can really see the benefits from, you know, my early days of kind of really struggling through some of those really hard times where workouts were really tough. I was getting thrown to the ringer, and um, yeah, I just kind of got ahead of myself, and I think I maybe took away from some of my performances from getting too eager to maybe do too much mileage or go too hard on a workout. So the more patient you can be, the better it's going to pay off quicker. And I guess tying into that is it's not easy. Your first couple of years transitioning into collegiate running, it's a whole nother commitment from high school. It's very intense. The training is a lot harder, and your body doesn't feel that great a whole lot of the time, the whole year. So that can be really hard because, this thing that we love to do with running, and it's supposed to be this really fun thing, but when we go out the door, it feels really bad, and that can really take away from the joy that we experience from this wonderful sport. But what it teaches you to do is like just really focus on that joy and passion at the forefront, like not focusing on I want to feel good and I want to, be able to run really fast. It's focusing on the I get to do this today, not I have to do this today. And it really forces you to kind of really put those two attitudes into perspective. So, yeah, that's the second piece of advice that I would offer is just be aware that it's going to be really hard, but recognize that you get this opportunity to push yourself to be the best you can be each and every day.
I like how you said, if you're patient, you'll get better quicker, because that seems like it would be an oxymoron, but really, you have to allow your body time to adapt. And you're right. If you do that in a healthy and strategic way, you're going to see results sooner than if you're injured or burnt out or just sick of running. So I think that's great advice.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just something that I'm still struggle with it a little bit even to this day. So I'm definitely not perfect, but um, it's probably the biggest area I've grown in, and just recognizing that hard work doesn't just mean more mileage or more or harder workouts. It also means recovering better and being smart with your workouts. So um, the better you can do that, I think it's just I would love for people to realize that and be able to enjoy success a little bit quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's good advice. Well, as many high school seniors are looking ahead to graduation and then perhaps becoming a collegiate athlete, what advice would you give a high school athlete for their senior season? So we've talked about, hey, when you
Ooh,
get to college, here's some good advice. But if you're in your last season as an athlete, what would you say to them?
great question. I think there's two things that I would say about that. That is the first being really soak it in as, soak it all in and recognize that this is a really special time in your life. My senior season was unfortunately taken away because of the pandemic, and that was something very, very hard for me to grasp in the moment. Just, I think everyone kind of just views your senior year as something that's a given. It's just going to happen. You're going to get there, and you're entitled to that opportunity. But um, really, as the pandemic kind of showed us, anything can happen, and opportunities can get taken away in almost an instant. So really acknowledge the opportunity for what it is and soak it in. All the great things about it. The races, each race, just treat it as an opportunity that another day you get to give your best. You get to spend the day with your best friends from high school. With hopefully you have a great relationship with your coach, and you get to have another day to spend with them before you're gonna have to part ways and go on to your collegiate program, hopefully. And um, that is probably the greatest piece of advice that I can, because I had to learn that maybe the harder way of just
Hmm.
having that opportunity taken away which was out of my control. And then just tying back to the prior question, be patient. I think, as runners, we're super high achievers. We want to be able to accomplish everything now and hit the marks that we want and set out for ourselves that we believe um, that we believe is within our grasp. But, you know, things happen on their own time. And, you have a whole nother career ahead of you of 4 or 5 years in college that you're going to be able to continue to develop. So if you don't hit those benchmarks right away, just treat it as another stepping stone into an ultimate picture that you're going to be able to continue to achieve and strive for as you go into college. So, um, yeah, just soak it all in. It's such a great time. I miss high school.
That's funny because when I asked Camden the same question, that's what he said. Soak it in, it's your
Yeah,
last of everything and just
yeah,
enjoy it. So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it goes very fast. It seems so
Oh, you're not
far
kidding.
away when you think about being an adult, but then you look back as an adult and you're like, gosh, it doesn't seem like that long ago.
Oh yeah, yep. I'm having those feelings and emotions right now. Is
Hmm.
it almost seems like I've blinked and I went from being a college freshman moving into my dorm, and now I'm looking at jobs and trying to figure out
Hmm.
what the rest of my life is going to look like. So happens fast.
Well, wait till you're a parent one day if you choose to have
Oh,
kids. It's crazy how time seems to just fast forward. It's very strange.
I I can only imagine.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you about this. I know this is kind of a personal question. I didn't
Mm.
put it in the questions I sent you, but I know that your
Ooh.
senior year of cross country, you were 32nd at the state meet. And top 30, as we know, is all state. And you've talked about giving yourself time and grace to grow and adapt. And so, my question is since runners, as you mentioned, also are very high achieving, goal setting people, sometimes perfectionists, if we're being honest,
Oh yeah.
many are, it's true. What did you have to do after that disappointment to kind of rally yourself and get yourself ready for the next thing? Because I know that there's a lot of listeners who are in our area and they finish their season and they might be dealing with maybe disappointment or
Mm,
they're not satisfied with how things went. And so
mm.
I just want you to give us maybe a little perspective on that because you've been right in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, that's a great question, actually. I don't think I ever um, really thought about that until maybe years down the line, as I'm, in college and had similar results happen that way. But looking back on it and having other experiences where you shoot for the stars and, everything is pointing towards a result that you think is well within your grasp. And I think we have this misconception that it's guaranteed. You've put in X amount of hours training and you've slept X amount of hours a week and ate great, your diet was clean, you hydrated well, everything, you clicked all the boxes, but the result didn't show up. I can think of many different instances that's happened in my college career and then even, before that senior cross country race as well. And the greatest learning lesson that I've taken away, and I honestly, as hard as they are in the moment, those are the most formidable experiences that I'll ever face because, I think we're taught as young kids that if you work hard, then you're going to succeed. And how we frame that is we're going to get some outcome. Like X equals Y, it's a direct correlation. But the reality of it is there's so much more than just some outcome that you can take away from any given situation. So, um, what I was able to gather from, coming short on those goals was that, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't change what happens the next day. You don't have any control over the past. You can't change two spots, to get an all-state spot because it already happened. You can't
Hmm.
change the time on the clock because it's already done. But what you can and do have control over is what you're going to do the next day. And that is you're going to get up, you're going to go and run, and you're going to do everything right. Not guaranteeing that it's going to, get you any particular result, but guaranteeing that you're going to give yourself the best chance to succeed on the given day. And, changing my mindset to have that one and not if I just work directly going to get a result has allowed me to just have such a better relationship with the sport. It's allowed me to have so much more fun and focus on the fun of training because that's what it should be. It shouldn't be this, well, the only thing that's going to make this worth it is if I get a result,
Hmm.
because as you just mentioned, we're all high achievers. So when we achieve one thing, it's on to the next. So it's never really enough for us. So it's really just allowed me to not define myself by any particular result that I could ever achieve, but more so be proud of the work that I put in and the attitude that I had going towards trying to achieve those goals. And then whether or not I was able to bring people along the way to help them as well, bring them up as I go up as well. So, um, yeah, I mean it's universal in life too. That's probably been the greatest lesson running has given me as I prepare to transition to a next chapter is, there's going to be times in work or family life or any social life, whatever it might be, that, you put a lot of effort into something and it doesn't work out the way you think it was supposed to. But, that doesn't change that you need to continuously still pour everything you have into being the best brother, sister, father, mother, employee, whatever it is, so that, you can be proud of looking back at everything you did to try and be the best you can be.
I love that. That's a great perspective. I've told some students the miles you ran, you still ran them. They're still there. The work you put in, it's still
Exactly.
there.
Right.
You still have it moving forward.
Right.
And, even if you are unsatisfied, there's always something more you can achieve in a different situation or, the future. And when we look back all the time, we don't really have that excitement to look forward. Like, what is my next? And there will always be somebody faster than you. It's inevitable. So, look at what you did, what you can do, and you can always get better. So, that's the balance, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, what do they say? Comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
if you focus too much on what other people are doing and base that for how you think you should, be living your life or doing certain things, that's preventing you from being who you are. And, that's no fun. That's not going to allow you to get the best out of yourself. So yeah, you're absolutely right. You just
Hmm.
really, it sounds counterintuitive because, we're always trying to learn and grow from other people, but you really have to focus at times at how can I be the best me today? And
Right.
yeah, that's really important.
And sometimes your comparison is yourself. Like, if you're
Hmm.
looking back on what you did and then you're not doing it, that can be a real monster too. I mean, we've lived that in my household. So,
Oh my goodness.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too. I
Hmm.
I have find myself, on occasion just having some restless nights because, the mind is a crazy thing where it'll just run off on its own and find something to nitpick about something you did or a past experience that you weren't maybe particularly proud of. And in a vulnerable moment, it tries to really take advantage of you and make you feel less of yourself. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, it's always a fine balance between being reflective on the past
Right.
of maybe some instances where you weren't as proud of something or something didn't go exactly the way you wanted it to, and what you can take from that. But being proactive or, moving on to the next thing is the other balance where what can I learn from that? Not just dwell on it and wish it didn't happen, but
Yeah.
figure out what you can do next.
Yeah. We've had to work on, okay, I did this when I was a
Hmm.
freshman, but
Hmm.
I'm not doing it now. Or I did this when I was a sophomore and I'm running more as a junior or a senior and I'm putting in more work, but I'm not as fast as I was then. And so, you have to put all that into perspective and look at, how do you incorporate your body growing and changing and what you're learning. And, once again, it may not happen now, but the work you're doing and the
Right.
miles you've run, they're still there. And that's all going to build to something maybe later. If it's not now, it's not like you're regressing because you're working hard. But when you're comparing what you did with what you're doing, that can be a really difficult place for some people to live in that space. And so, yeah, we've had to work on that in my house with my kids because
Absolutely.
if you don't see that steady linear improvement, people expect that in running. And when you see the best runners in the state, they do that. That is what you
Hmm.
see. But there are a lot of stories where that doesn't happen, and that's completely normal and okay.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
don't put that pressure on yourself to not be okay with letting yourself grow and change. It's totally fine.
I mean, I think you wonderfully just touched on everything we've talked about with, there's all these challenges young people are facing. And I think it makes it so much worse. Not like it's great what you do on social media, but social media itself can present its own challenges
Hmm.
with making comparisons so easy. You see what the best kids in the country are doing, and
Yep.
then you expect to follow that similar trajectory if you put in the amount of work and do
Hmm.
more each year and a little bit more each year. But like you said, it's not a linear progression, and everyone's journey looks a little bit different. Those kids that are running national records and winning nationals or doing all these glamorous things, they're going through their own bumps in the road as well, and we don't see that on social media,
Right.
obviously, because it's a highlight reel. But yeah, no, I mean, and you touched on it again, like it's just being patient with understand, I think it's so undervalued, like the changes our bodies go through, when we're growing up, and
Hmm.
everyone goes through them a little bit differently. And, we just expect, oh, it's going to be okay. Like I'll just put in more work and then it's going to be okay. Like I'm going to run faster still, but that's just not always the case. And the last thing I wanted to touch on your kind of just little summary there was, I think what's super important for the people that end up being successful and, fostering really great attitudes that are going to treat them well, both in the sport and outside, are the support systems. It sounds like you are an amazing support system for all your kids in the household of, being that reassuring voice of, when they doubt themselves and when things don't go to plan,
Right.
that, you steer them back on that direction, that it's like, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And that
Right.
doesn't mean that this is all for nothing. And
Right.
that's something that I cannot even put into words of how thankful I am for the support system I've had
Hmm.
from my family who've, dealt with a lot of, there probably were times when they just got sick of me because I was just so, you know, feeling pitiful and, just not listening to their advice and not taking their great advice. And now in looking back, I'm like, oh, they were 100% right. And it's just funny how that all works. So yeah,
Hmm.
just the value of a support system is huge and can't be put into words.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I recorded my last episode about myself, because I went through that and I wanted to quit. I almost did. And then none of the things that I experienced after that would have ever happened. And the the future that you think you are going to have and the one that you do rarely line up. Sometimes they do. But you have no idea, and what you think you want might not be what actually ends up being what you want, and you just have to give yourself that time to kind of figure those things out. I love to tell my athletes and my students and my kids about Dakota Lindworm. I think she's married now and her last name changed. She got third place, I think, at the Olympic marathon trials.
Hmm.
When
Hmm.
she was in high school, her PR in the 800 was like a 2:35. I mean, she really was very average, very average. And now she's, placing in the top 10 at the Olympics and the marathon. She's running, with the pros and big majors and just getting better and better. And she talks about how, like, I just had to put in the work and believe in myself. And her mom, who unfortunately has passed away, but she talked about how her mom believed in her and told her, just, you got to trust it, like, trust the process. You are good at this. You will be good at this. And she is. So, and that was, a decade in the making. It wasn't,
Isn't that
oh,
crazy? Isn't
yeah,
that
tomorrow I'm going to run the
crazy?
marathon and be good at it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to see decompress from that, story. It was such a wonderful story to see her finish third, and then she did amazing at the Olympics too.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she's also a Division II runner, so
Yep.
just kind of a really great, inspirational story
Yeah.
about like you don't have to go to this flashy university. But aside from all that, I think something that, if I can bring faith into this, like you mentioned, like our idealized life or future outcome is typically not aligned with what ends up happening, or sometimes it does. But it just kind of goes back to, I'm a firm believer that, God has a greater plan for me than I'll ever realize. And I'm in this period of my life that, feels like it's going to be forever with collegiate athletics, but there's a whole life after this, or I hope
Hmm.
at least. And that I'm going to be excited to be able to just continue to figure out what is special about me outside of just primarily my sport, because
Hmm.
God puts something special in all of us that just needs to be explored. And um, once people find that, I think the closer that they align with what kind of God's intention is for them, that's when they start truly living and are able to recognize like they're exactly where they're supposed to be when they're there in the moment,
Yep.
both in
I
the
love
good
that.
and bad times.
Yes. And your struggles prepare you for the next thing. So every
Absolutely.
stage leads into the next stage. And then, like you said, you find what maybe your gifts or talents or purposes. And then, because you have these experiences and you can share them with someone else, it's much more powerful. And that's when you really start to reach and touch others. It's not just about you
Absolutely.
anymore, it's about using what you've experienced or gone through. And I find that very true in my own life. And I look back at some really, really tough stuff that I've lived through, and it was horrible at the time, and I would have never said,
Hmm.
"Oh, please let this happen to me." But looking back on it, I'm like, if that hadn't happened, then this next thing, when that happened, I would not have had the same perspective, experience, ability, whatever I needed character-wise or, experience-wise to move into that and handle it and then go to the next thing after that. So yeah, it is really hindsight is 2020 looking back, but you're very right. You
Yeah.
have to go through each thing, even though it's tough. Builds character and builds experience and
Yeah.
perspective. So
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly doesn't make it any easier in the moment, but
no,
like you
oh
said,
no, we're not
it's
dismissing.
funny.
No.
It's funny to look back on because then it just feels like it's like, oh, of course that was supposed to happen, but
Mhm.
like you said, hindsight is 2020. It's just that's
Right.
the funny part of life, I guess.
Right. And that's not dismissing terrible, terrible things that happen to
No, no,
people. Like,
absolutely
not
not.
to say
Absolutely not.
that anything that has happened to you, it's like, oh, well, that's good that that happened. So you could be ready for the next thing. But you can choose to take that and use it for good when you turn it around. You don't have to,
Absolutely. Yeah, it's
yeah,
just yeah.
continue to dwell and say, oh, and that's also not to dismiss someone's feelings if something terrible has happened, because that's also valid and realistic. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
just looking at it from I guess a top view versus a in the mud pit view.
Life is just a game of choices. It always
Yep.
is.
Yep. All right. Well, let's kick it a little lighter here. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
so
Sounds great.
let's talk about some of your go-tos for training and racing. So
Ooh.
let's hear what are foods you like to eat, maybe pre-post workout race, snacks, things you use for hydration, just little routines or things you'd recommend if somebody's looking for like, hey, what do you use?
Sure. Yeah. I guess just the staples that I can touch on with this one are I'm a very big believer in getting like nutrients into the body very quickly after training. It's super important. Um, so my go-tos for post are I always make a fruit smoothie. So I normally blend up some strawberries, some almond milk, a little bit of hydration supplement, and then some protein powder. That way I'm kind of touching on all the different food groups of, some sugar, some carbs, some protein. Just to replenish the body pretty quickly after training because when you're doing higher mileage it's super important. And then even prior to that, I'm a big believer in you need to fuel the body to be able to do what it's about to do. So I always make sure I get up an hour to an hour and a half before I have practice and get in. I like to have a peanut butter bagel and a banana. That's my go-to. And then drink lots of water. That's typically the staples for my morning routine. And then I am very boring. I like to just kind of do the same thing over and over because it keeps things simple and makes I like the routine of things. So a lot of my diet consists of, some sort of carbohydrate, so rice, pasta, potatoes, something like that, and then a beef or chicken, one of those as a protein, and then a salad. That's kind of just the staples I like to hit. I feel like it touches on everything you need, and then it keeps it super simple.
That sounds good. Do you have a favorite shoe?
Ooh, I'm a big Nike guy. We get like a deal here at Saginaw Valley, and I fell in love with the Nike Pegasus. I've been wearing it since probably sophomore year of college, and kind of ran with it. I know it's kind of all my teammates give me a lot of hassle for it because they're like it's the worst shoe ever, but it works for me, and I'm just gonna keep rolling with it.
I wouldn't say it's terrible. I wore it all through college and high school, and it is like it's been around forever. And they've made I
Forever.
don't know how many versions of it. So yeah, I
Crazy.
went to Brooks a few years back, but I wore them for a long, long time. So no, I have no criticism of that shoe. All
Fair
right.
enough.
So favorite movie, TV show?
Ooh, I'm a big Seinfeld guy. I really
Okay.
enjoy just throwing that on. I can it almost becomes white noise. Sometimes I'll just be doing homework and have it on in the background. Favorite movie? Not a huge movie guy. I guess the times I watch movies are when I'm home and I have two little siblings and they love to, like, the best way to just kind of finish up the day is just watch a movie. So, their favorite right now, and it's changed a lot, I believe is it Moana or is it Inside Out one or two? I don't know. Those are both very cute movies and
Yes, they are.
they're very fun. Yeah.
Okay. Do you run with music? And if you do, who would you listen to?
Ooh. That's a great question. Typically, no. I love to just kind of treat the opportunity of running, and I don't get to, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I don't run by myself super often because I have a great team around me. So I love to just be able to take in the moment of being around my teammates, have a good chat, have a laugh during the run. That's really what I like to do. But when I am on the seldom times alone, I most of the time like to just be in my own head and kind of work through anything that I might be thinking about or, just think about the goals that I have for, whether it's running, school, or anything like that. So it's just like, running affords you an hour of just isolated time with yourself where you can truly just be grounded if you allow yourself the time to be, a lot of the time we're very surrounded by technology and everything. So
Hmm.
I like the time to be by myself and very present.
I like that. Hear that, guys? Take out the AirPods. Talk to your teammates. All right. Well, how about a favorite snack? Like we call them cheat foods, but I don't like to say that because you're not cheating. You're eating. Food is fuel, and it's okay to have junk food. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have that
Absolutely.
be your primary diet
Right,
ingredient
right.
or, staple, but it's okay to have dessert and it's okay to enjoy life and food. So,
Oh, yeah.
what is like your favorite either sweet treat, dessert, junk food? What do you like?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I completely agree. We are runners, but that doesn't mean, Thanksgiving just happened and I absolutely gorged myself. It's the best time to do that. So, um, man, the best snack, if I want something like that's like within routine of stuff that I really love to eat, I really love to eat like just like Greek yogurt and then some granola on top. There's like this really good chocolate chip granola that I really like that I like to put on top of it. So that's kind of like I guess if you want to categorize them as healthy versus unhealthy snacks, then that's my go-to. But if I'm going for maybe more on the unhealthy side when I'm a little bit looser and just like to looking for a sweet treat, then I'm a big sucker for Skittles or Nerds, anything like that. Just a gummy treat, honestly.
Okay. Have you ever tried, oh gosh, what are they? Like Airhead bites? They're,
Yes, I had
the
the
long
extreme
Airheads.
bites.
Yeah, they're
Yes,
like little
yes.
candies instead of the long taffy candy. Oh, those are so addicting. Yeah, we
I
have to
know
be,
exactly what those ones are. Those are a go-to for me as
yes,
well.
those are really good. I don't buy candy a lot, but if I do, that's what I get. Okay, so what is next for you after graduation? Do you plan on continuing to run as well? So tell us about what you're looking ahead towards professionally and then maybe athletically.
Sure, yeah. Well, soft plan is my dad owns an insurance agency in Richmond right back
Uh-huh.
home.
Yep,
So,
he's my agent.
um, is he? Well, fair
Yeah, he
enough.
is.
Fair enough. Well, that's great. Yeah. And I've been able to grow up around the business starting from when my grandfather was the owner there. And I was fortunate enough to experience my dad working with my grandfather. And being able to see that dynamic was super special for me to see that healthy working relationship and then also family relationship as well. And I feel like I've kind of developed that with my father as I've, grown up and kind of gotten a little older as well. And um, that's looking like what the next step for me is as well. I've started to work there part time, and I've really been enjoying the environment that he's created at that agency. And then just being able to work alongside my dad is something that is super special to me, just because again, I just really value the relationship that we have. So that is the professional plan moving forward. But who really knows what's going to happen in the next couple months? Maybe something else comes up.
Hmm.
And then in terms of running, I will absolutely continue to run. That's the beauty of this sport is, you can really just put on a pair of shoes and do it whenever. So I don't know what it'll look like structurally wise. That's going to be an interesting adventure as I, transition into this next chapter of my life. But I would love to continue to look at other ways that I can give back to the community, like participating in group runs or, maybe some turkey trots or holiday runs, just things that bring the community together for the sake of, running, which is really, really beautiful to me. And it's something that I haven't been able to take advantage of as much, just being a competitive runner because we have such structured schedules all the time. So that'll be something really exciting for me as I transition into a more what I want to make of it kind of relationship with running.
Have you considered running a marathon? I mean, you've got a lot of miles, so you'd
I
be
can't,
pretty
yeah,
prepared.
I can't, yeah, I can't say it hasn't crossed my mind. Yeah, I would love to give it a good hard effort, and the very cocky side of me thinks I'm gonna blow it out of the water. But 26.2 miles is a mean distance, and you got to respect
hmm
it. So
hmm
I am super excited to tackle that challenge.
Yeah, I did my first marathon. Gosh, I think I'm gonna say 2 or 3 years after graduation. My husband decided to do it first. And I was like, are you crazy? That's so far. And then we started training, but I thought it was crazy. My whole life, even being a runner, I'm like, that is crazy. Who would ever run that far? So we did Detroit and
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, and then we were aiming at qualifying for Boston because as we were training, we're like, okay, this seems feasible. The times have gotten a little a little tougher to qualify
Yeah,
since,
no, yeah,
but
it's pretty insane.
yeah. But I thought like up till mile 20, I was at mile 21. I'm like, what is this wall they talk about at mile 20? Psh, mile 22.
Yep, yep.
And it was like, oh man, a bear jumped on my back. Oh my gosh. And I went through an aid station and I knew I was probably going into glycogen depletion. And I tried to grab a banana and I didn't even have the strength to get it to my mouth. So I ran with that squashed banana in my hand for the
Oh my
last, I'm going to say,
goodness.
3.5 miles. And in those days, we finished on Ford Field. Like we actually ran out onto the field under the Jumbotron.
No way.
Yeah. And Rob Bloom, the Armada High School coach, was also running that
Yeah.
year. So the cross country team had come to watch. So they were all in the stands cheering. And I come staggering in. And I remember seeing myself on the Jumbotron thinking, oh my gosh, I look like death with this banana in my hand. And then I just got to the end and I fell on the turf and I could not get up. Could not. It wasn't like, oh, I'm really tired. It was, I literally could not move my legs. So they put me in a wheelchair and dragged me off. And
My
so here I am
goodness.
on the wheelchair and on the Jumbotron, and all the kids in the stands like, "Oh my
Oh
gosh,
my
what's happening?"
gosh.
And yeah, it was bad. And then I did it again several times. So see, it's like you learn and you move on.
Man,
So,
I'm envious of the people that can look good on camera when they're running
oh
because
no,
I've
no.
certainly had my fair share of
Mm-hmm.
just embarrassing photos of me just looking absolutely rough out there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I definitely related to the just feeling and looking like death out there.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, who really has great running photos? I
It's
mean,
true. It's
running
true.
doesn't usually look pretty. There's some people that look good just generally, but I have some photos from this year just photographing meets, and I had to put them in a separate folder of like the worst. Like these are hilarious yet awful. So, don't feel bad if you look bad in a running photo. Nobody really does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, the last question I have for you today, Noah, is if you could pick anywhere in the world to go for a run, where would it be?
I am originally from Seoul, South Korea. I was adopted when I was 5 months old, so I've never had the opportunity to return back there, but I would certainly love to do that. And if and when I have that opportunity, I'm most certainly going to enjoy a run over there. So that would be the place that I would love to get a run in.
Sounds good. Is there any historical figure that you would love to talk to on a run, whether living or not?
Oh man, that's a really great
I
question.
threw you a curveball. I was just curious.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. If I had to, man, I'm a big baseball guy, and I have always been really fascinated with, Jackie Robinson, especially just given, we live in such a like at times judgmental society at
Hmm
times, and to consider kind of the magnitude of what he had to deal with. And, I struggle at times with just like, oh, what are people thinking of me? And probably nobody is spending the time thinking of, me randomly at a time during the day. But he had so much attention on him, just given the social dynamics going on at the time. So I would love to pick his brain about kind of how he stayed focused in those times and was able to just break barriers. I think that would be a really great conversation.
Yes. And I would love to tell him thank you for being brave enough to
Yes.
stand up for civil rights because that
Yeah.
was by no means an easy thing and life
No, no,
threatening,
no, no.
literally.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Great, amazing man with a lot of courage. Well,
Absolutely.
Noah, it has been awesome to talk to you. You have a lot of great perspective, a lot of great experience. I know that when people listen, they're going to have a lot of valuable insight from your running and just your insight on life. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was super fun and yeah, keep up the great work. It's been really cool to see kind of the growth of your platform and being able to see all the guests that you've brought on. So you're doing a great thing for the running community.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Once again, thank you so much for tuning into today's Blue Water Running podcast. I can't wait to feature more cross-country and track and field athletes from the Blue Water area, so stay tuned because it just might be you. Coverage on Blue Water Running is sponsored in part by Elite Feet of Port Huron. If you need running shoes, spikes, or apparel, they have a friendly and knowledgeable staff to help you find just the right fit, and they're big fans of running too. They are located at 327 Huron Ave in downtown Port Huron. If you are interested in sponsoring coverage or partnering with Blue Water Running as an advertiser to reach and support local runners, please reach out via the website, show notes, or social media channels. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. You can find the Blue Water Running podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and any other major media player. You can also ask your smart speaker to play the Blue Water Running podcast. If you have an idea for a great topic or guest that you would like to hear about, feel free to contact me through the website links or show notes. You can follow Blue Water Running on Instagram, X, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also find meet and athlete reports and articles at www.bluewaterrunning.org.